All right, so
Good evening.
Wednesday night, we got it right that time. Normally we say good morning. Good evening and welcome to our bonus teaching time here. And you'll notice our table and our panel just keeps expanding.
Growing.
We're going to have to get a
Yes.
bigger table next week.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. If you are joining us tonight, which obviously you are if you're hearing me talk, this is our Wednesday night bonus teaching. And we tell them about the connection card, Harley.
Yes, if you will go to StuttgartHarvestChurch.com, you will find a link, a button really, that will load up on that home page, and it says Online Worship Guide. We're using that actually for everything we're doing online right now. So for Sundays, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, that is there. And we would ask if you would just simply fill that in, and that will be good. There's just give us on the connection card the information that we don't already have.
Right. And the other thing that you can do on that online connection card is also our online giving, which if you're watching us on Facebook or on YouTube right now, you have that on your screen. All you have to do to take advantage of the online giving is text the number on your screen, 870-600-3361, and you just text the amount that you would like to give. If you have never used that online giving option, then there's going to be a few more prompts that you'll have to go through. Very simple, 100% secure. If you're listening to us on the radio, obviously you don't have that number. I'll say it again, 870-600-3361. The other option, if you would like to give, of course, is just to come up to Stuttgart Harvest Church during the week and slide it through the crack in the door, and we'll pick that up. But regardless, we are grateful for the way that you are supporting your church, Stuttgart Harvest Church, through this time, because as we've talked about, even though we're not meeting together, the bills are still coming.
Yep, they still roll in. Cole, are we ready?
Well, we want to remind you, as we talk about every single week, if you are watching this right now, as you apparently are, share this video. Hit the share button. Get it in front of as many people as possible. Also, interact with us. Comment. Just interact, engage, be a part of what we're doing right now, and that would be great. So
awesome.
As we get moving forward this evening, then really what we're wanting to do is just kind of unpack a little bit more about what we talked about Sunday morning, which if you'll remember, we're right in the middle of a series that we're calling 4 Steps to Blow Your Life, which step 1, of course, was driving your life with your emotions and with your feelings and kind of forgetting that secondhand God's truth.
Right.
And then week 2, we talked about not learning from your past. And we had a great conversation last week with John Fraser and Justin West. Had a great conversation with them about how their perspective on what that meant to them. Well, this week, we have been talking about the crowd and how basically following the crowd, how it can really ruin our lives if, it can really be a negative thing in many contexts. And our bottom line, Harley, for this week was enter with the crowd, exit with their mess. So kind of just real briefly, I know that's hard for you to do, real briefly, kind of unpack, enter with the crowd, exit with their mess.
Yes, and basically what we're talking about, and we're going to be talking with the Crawfords, so welcome the Crawfords.
Yes, probably should have already done that.
Yeah, that's okay. So we're going to be talking about how we have a tendency to, God knows it, and our social sciences proves it over and over and over again. And there's studies that we have a tendency, when we take the flaws that we all have, and they may be different for everybody, when I take my flaws and I place them in the wrong group, then that flaw, let's say Carson and I are in a group, if we have a similar flaw, those flaws are no longer small. In that group, they become really big.
Right.
And so
as we do have the Crawford family. I'm going to say Carson family. The Crawford family here with us. We thought it would be interesting to have a conversation with them because we do have such a wide perspective. We first, of course, have a family.
Yes.
We have a husband, wife. We have a recent college graduate just beginning her life. We have a current college student, Mississippi State, right?
Correct.
This
Go
is
Dogs.
Mississippi State. Go Bulldogs. I mean,
Go Bulldogs.
that was a question whether or not we were going to let that pass, but we went ahead and went with it. And then we have you're practically a graduated senior in high school. I mean, according to the state of Arkansas, you've graduated, right? You're done, and you're going to be moving on, be playing baseball this fall, if everything works out, this fall and next spring, I guess. You're going to be playing baseball at
UA Rich Mountain.
UA Rich Mountain. So we have a lot of different perspectives, and so we thought it'd be interesting to get these different perspectives. And I want to start, Greg and Becky, I want to start with y'all. That bottom line, enter with the crowd, exit with their mess. The crowd. What does that term mean to you? What do we mean, when you think of the crowd? Kind of, which one of y'all want to start with that? What does the crowd mean to you guys?
Well, the crowd can be a lot of different things, and as you guys taught us on Sunday with Solomon, his crowd happened to be the many wives that he had. I think it could be anything for the friends that you said the birds of a feather flock together. That is a true statement, because your tendencies that you're already inside you will be manifested if you get around someone that has the same sort of tendencies. So that crowd could be just one person, or it could be many. And I think if you don't stand out from the crowd, which me personally believe that self-confidence is the issue, if you're a more self-confident individual, you'll tend to stay away from that crowd and kind of carve your own path. But you can get wrapped up into the crowd and be pulled in, kind of like what you were telling us today, or on Sunday was. That's kind of my deal.
I have a question before we go further, though. Have you ever heard the phrase, if you lay down with dogs, you're going to get up with fleas? You have, but it's still a little bit foreign? Wow.
Thank you.
I mean, that one is the most famous, but that's like...
Yeah, I read that in the
maybe
the notes,
that's an Oklahoma thing.
I guess.
Well, it may
Thank you, Carson. Appreciate
Maybe.
it. Thank you. So back on topic.
I'm sorry.
The
He brought it up.
When you think about the crowd, Miss Becky, what are you thinking of? What is
Like
that?
right now, I would say like the parents of his age group, like my crowd or who I, am around, and that's or your groups. I mean, it can be a small group, but right now for me in the stage, like when he was in sports, it's the parents of his friends, and
Which
things
become
like
your peers.
So.
And we can find those at, like you said there, peers, something in
Peers
common.
parents,
You can
yeah.
find them at work. You can find them at school. You can find them at work.
Right. I thought that was interesting what you said, kind of what's already inside you, kind of. So like, for instance, with Carson, baseball. You're a sports guy, baseball, so maybe you tend in that. I know you're an animal lover, right? So moving in the direction of vet school and hopefully moving in that direction. So do you kind of find yourself gravitating toward people with the same?
Yeah, I do, and especially and when I was in college, I was in a sorority, and so that already put me into a big group of people. But even in that sorority, I found people that had like-mindedness as I did. So within a crowd, I got in an even smaller crowd, if that makes sense, more intimate.
Yeah.
And I think with crowds, like anything in today's time, can be good, bad, ugly, pretty. So you just have to really look into you and look into what you want to surround yourself with. Like Dad said, like if you have a good tendency and you want to bring that out, surround yourself with people that have that same sort.
I don't want to park too long here, but I think y'all hit on such a huge thing right there, in that what we already kind of have in us, that's what we gravitate to, which naturally we're going to gravitate toward people that have some similarities to us. So
now there are some things that are just purely relational, like, not purely relational, but like things that are not noxious. I don't know what word to use, but like
noxious.
Sports.
What better word can I think of?
Sport. We have sports.
You have a thesaurus over there?
Aviation. We've got aviation sports. A love for animals, and those things. Those don't go wrong in and of themselves. But then somehow, when I am in a group, put me back in high school. Somehow, when we're in those groups, and those groups kind of get smaller and smaller, sometimes it gets smaller and smaller based upon that character flaw that I have. And it's not that most people come right out and say, you want to smoke this or do this or drink this. Somehow there's these almost nonverbal cues that we just pick up on, and we're like, yeah, they're interested in that too. And those groups get a little bit on in a negative way. They can get smaller and smaller where we have that.
Right.
And here's the truth. I think a truth. The internet has made this so much easier that any character flaw that I have, within just seconds, I can find a whole bunch of people that I don't even know who have that very same flaw.
Well, Graydon, you're in the midst of college, so you're right there, Starkville, Mississippi, go Bulldogs, Mississippi State. Kind of what we're talking about is, again, how much easier it tends to be to go different directions, whether positive or negative, but how much easier it is to do it in a group, in a group setting. And you made a great point. Self-confidence sometimes can play a role in that. But I'm going to use a phrase, and then I just kind of let you piggyback off of the phrase. So the phrase being,
lay down with dogs.
no, because that phrase nobody knows. There's power in the group. Whatever you hold to moderately on your own, in a group, grows to be extreme. So I'm going to say it again. There's power in a group. Whatever you hold to moderately on your own by yourself, in a group, it'll grow to an extreme. Kind of, do you maybe see that in a college atmosphere? I mean, anything that comes to mind there?
Yeah, so first, I'm gonna unpack there's power in a group part first. If you, like my sister said, when I'm in a fraternity, like she was in sorority, so you immediately got thrusted in a group with friends and of like-mindedness, and sometimes bad, ways, like people were partying and stuff like that. Like the power, like I'm gonna use the negative way. So all the friends that I had wanted to go out party and go do this, that, and the other, and just the power of peer pressure and just oh, come on, do this, you can do it, it's okay, you're not gonna get in trouble, and then you wind up getting in trouble because you went with the group.
Because I always got in trouble.
Exactly, and I've
always got
I've done
caught.
that too. Sorry, Mom.
I've always got caught.
No,
Truth comes out a little bit.
And then, but like, if you hold on to yourself morals and stuff moderately, you can still hold on to those, but the power in the group will just come back to haunt you and just push you to do that. And that's what I've experienced in college right now.
What about on the high school level?
Oh, man, let me tell you something. She already knows, and I've already gotten, I've been there, done that. Peer pressure's a big deal, actually. And I personally, I will admit it. I'm a big man, I'll admit it. I have fallen into it, and I've suffered the consequences of it, and that's about how it goes.
Well, and in one sense too, goodness, it takes strong parents to help a child suffer the consequences. Sometimes those consequences come in other ways, grades, scholarships, blah, 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 blah. But sometimes when we add to that tough parents, it's just a tough job.
It is.
To see that happen. Okay.
As from a parent's perspective, from y'all's
Re-ask it
perspective.
too, in case
So,
we
okay, so
forget.
I'll ask the question
In case
again.
we forgot.
Kind of the phrase, there's power in the group. Whatever you hold to moderately on your own in a group grows to the extreme. So kind of whatever's in you already, when you get in a group of, as we talked about, like-minded people, it tends to, it just tends to multiply.
On the flaw side.
On the flaw side. And it can be true on the positive side
Yeah.
as well, but...
Well, I guess the negative side would be just when one does not right, does something they're not supposed to. It's hard as a parent because if you're if you don't have y'all just go on the parent. If you don't have parents that are like-minded and I discipline or we discipline or something, where I know I'm known. I've got the I'm the mean mom. But that's okay because
That's what I heard.
can
That's
care.
the-
No, it is.
It's
It is
temporary,
because
too.
I think but that's okay because
Yeah.
I love them, and so that's
they know
why.
it.
But then you'll go around and you'll hear, well, they're going to try that in college, or they're going to. So it's good to let them experiment. But I'm just not from that camp,
Right.
And so
You're
I
gonna
think
steer
we're
'em
pretty
away from
strong.
it.
I think we're pretty strong. I mean, we might not have a lot of friends, but that's okay. I mean, in that sense,
Yeah, I got you.
yeah.
There is strength in numbers. I go back to when Graydon built a project for physics class. We were using spaghetti noodles. And, one of the noodles by itself is just quickly
Gonna break.
breaks.
Yeah.
We put 24 together and made logs out of it, and we built a trellis, and actually won the competition, didn't you? Had to hold 10 pounds for 10 minutes.
Uh-huh.
And
Cool.
so all those spaghetti noodles were strong.
Yeah.
And so there is strength in numbers.
Yes.
The flip side of that is
I was
when,
gonna hit on that.
when you're parenting in a way that Becky and I do, find it hard to find people that actually mirror those
You have
types
a
of
few.
qualities.
You do have it. We
There
have
is
a few.
moral values with all of us, I think, but there is a few people. But I think whenever you gravitate toward those, there is a strength in that number
Yes.
of group because you can bounce each other
Yes.
off. You can
Oh.
counsel one
We're not
another.
the only parents trying
You can
to.
counsel each other.
Oh,
You-
yeah.
Gosh, I
that's-
want to jump into a
yeah.
small group conversation, but Graydon needs to talk. So,
Oh no, I'm good. He's good. He got it. He got it. He got it all out. Yeah.
so kind of we're jumping on the kind of talking from the parents' perspective. So talking from y'all's perspective still, we talked about on Sunday how Solomon. What we talk about when we parent, what we talk about sometimes falls on deaf ears, but what we model, what we actually live, what we show, very often that's really what gets picked up on. And Solomon's life was very simple. So as with Solomon, whatever we show our children, that's probably going to be eventually in time what they repeat in their lives. So kind of from a parent's perspective, how does that hit you? I mean, how should that hit a parent? What I model in front of my kids
Versus what I say.
versus what I say to my kids, that's probably what they're going to repeat. I mean, that's for me. I mean, I got little fellas. I got an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old, but doesn't change the fact that that's a pretty
They're watching.
that's heavy. They're
Yeah,
watching.
They're watching.
You know.
Yeah. Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I feel like I'm talking to
That's
them.
okay.
I used to say that I learned respectfulness from my dad, but I really never can remember him telling me to be respectful to other people or to other people's possessions.
Yeah.
I think that's something that he modeled to me, and I just saw that he did it in his daily life, and so it's huge. Most of us are visual learners. We're not audible learners.
Yeah.
Some people can look at something and remember it, and some people can read stuff and remember it. I'm more of a visual learner, and so as far as passing down the traits that I feel like my dad passed to me, to pass to my boys, I just try to model those.
Yeah.
I'm also a flight instructor, so when we try to demonstrate a maneuver in the airplane, it's they want to see us do it. The student does, and so
Big difference.
big difference than sitting in a classroom and saying, okay, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
We do that
Yes.
as a ground school session, but we also go out and practice it in the
It
airplane.
really sinks in
Yeah, the
when
modeling.
they see it.
Right. So Mason,
Yes.
oldest, right? You're the oldest.
I
So-
guess.
The wisest.
the oldest, the wisest. So these guys are like, whoa, whoa. So from your perspective now, same question. From your perspective, looking back, okay, how old are you, Mason?
24.
24 years young. In your life growing up with your parents,
Yes.
how much of the lessons that you learned were things that you were told versus things that you just saw, watched, just
up.
kind of happened via osmosis,
It's
you know?
probably 80-20.
Really?
So I probably saw 80%.
That's what I said Sunday.
That-
And then I probably got told 20%.
Yeah.
Because our parents have gone through a lot in their life, and so I know me and the boys, they couldn't have told us everything we needed to know, watch out for, all this kind of thing. We just had to watch them go through those hardships, those victories, and we've even talked, I don't know if they know this, but amongst ourselves about how we plan to be when we're older, like with each other. And so that's
Cool.
not something that Mom and Dad could have sat us down one night and got it all out on paper or whatever. So, yes, I've learned a
So
lot.
for mom and dad or
Yeah.
prospective mom and dad that are out there listening or watching right now, these are pretty heavy decisions. This is pretty heavy stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, Carson, this is your moment. You
Big
are
deal,
our
man.
practically graduated senior
Yes, sir.
Representing
You represent
and the class
of
of
2020 for Stuttgart High School and maybe beyond. Who knows? So you're the man. Okay. I'm gonna use a phrase, and I just want you to give your thoughts on it. Okay. Run when they run. Fall when they fall. Run where they run. Fall where they fall. How does that hit you? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Man, that just, it's like you just listen to what they want to do. Like you're hiding in their shadow, and you ain't got like the confidence and self-confidence, like Dad said, to like carve your own path or whatever. You're just, when they fall, like for me, like when some people fall, they don't get in trouble or they don't get hurt. When I fall, metaphorically, I get hurt. You know, I take the full damage. I get thrown under the bus or whatever. You know,
There's a lot of wisdom right there.
Yeah, we actually touched on it
yeah.
Sunday, but we didn't unpack that very long.
If you're going to fall where they fall, as far as the people in this crowd,
yeah.
they're not going to get hurt when you fall.
No, because like you're going to be on the bottom, they're going to land on top of you.
You're going to get hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of young man wisdom right
A lot to be said there. We don't have time.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a lot to that. You know, when we're following, and it really comes down to that word follow. When I'm following the crowd, when I'm following my peers, then I find myself falling when and where they fall.
Exactly.
When I'm following Jesus, then I'm succeeding and I'm victorious when and where He is, which we talked about 2 weeks ago. That whole thing, you know. I mean, that word "follow," man, that's a heavy word. Who are you following?
Let's take that metaphor a little further, because if you're following Jesus, none of us are pretending that we're still not going to fall.
Well, we've already admitted it.
Yeah, we have.
We've all admitted it.
We are still going to fall.
That told us to be strong.
Uncomfortably, maybe.
Yeah.
Jesus never failed. We're going to fall following Him.
Yeah.
But if we are eating His dust, He is right there, and He's standing us back up. And but if we're falling and we are following someone else, it is a little more difficult for us to feel like we can grab a hold of Jesus. We feel like He's not right there because we've been going this way. Our back is to Him.
Right.
We're doing good. We got about 8 minutes.
Okay, so my voice cracked. So, go ahead. You want to make fun of that? So, next question, kind of just for a few moments here, and we're going to start. I want everybody to kind of jump in on this one. We'll start since Miss Becky hadn't said as much. I want to jump. I'm going to start with you. So, straightforward. Does any of do any of these principles change as we move into adulthood that we're talking about? Do any of these principles change, or does this pretty much go? This is the way it is.
I don't think they do. I mean, they, I guess, mature with you,
Yeah.
but the basics, you know, are there. I mean, you learn as a kid. I think I always just having 3 kids and everything. I mean, about 13, or you know, when they accept the Lord, you know, and I'm thankful that they have accepted the Lord, and they're accountable. So that's just how I've seen it, and they should just grow off of that. And you know,
I'd like to bounce off that. Recently, well, me being home with quarantine and stuff, we've gotten back as a family unit and gotten real close again. But Mom's always said like we have her in her back of our head, like just we can hear Mom in our head, and I always joke.
Excellent.
I always joke and say that when I'm over, like when I'm in Starkville doing stuff, I can always hear Mom, iron your clothes before you do this, that, do all this stuff, like stuff that she's instilled, you know. But like recently we're brother and sister, we fight a lot, and for instance, so I was working out at home, and Mason came in, and I was just in my zone. I was doing all my stuff, and I just jabbed at her, and I said, "Get out, because it's my time." And then Mom was outside and overheard the whole thing anyway. And so then like 5 minutes passed, and I walked out and I said, "Get in here, because I'll help you." And then and then at dinner we were talking about it, and I was like, I just kept feeling that at the back of my, I could keep hearing the voice in the back of my head going, "Go get her. She wants to be there with you."
That's awesome.
And I just, over the years, I've gotten, that voice has gotten louder, and it's
more clear.
It's
too,
more clear,
probably.
and it's comforting to know that.
You'll still hear it in your adulthood too.
Because it never changes.
Parents.
It never
You're
changes.
right.
These principles
Those
don't
principles
change.
stay the same.
They really do.
Yeah.
So Mason,
Which is important that you teach them at a young age.
right.
I mean,
oh,
we
during
started teaching
teaching
our
time,
kids.
I could have banged my head against the wall with one of them.
He don't mind me saying this,
No.
but you know, we value discipline, and I think as a human being,
Yeah.
you need to discipline yourself,
Been there, done
self-discipline, and you
Yeah.
also need to make each other accountable. And so we've allowed decisions to be made in everybody's life, and I've made horrible decisions in my life. I've suffered the consequences, and so I felt like that our kids should be able to make decisions based on teachings from us, and just suffer consequences
Right,
or
as they come.
enjoy the benefit.
Or the benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I want to jump in, and if we don't get to this, I want to at least have said it.
Sure.
I agree. I don't think those principles change. I think as we grow older, the consequences change.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
that's true.
The consequence of your children taking magic markers, well, they've never done this, but taking magic markers and redecorating the wall,
I know.
that's one thing. They have done that?
Oh.
Okay. The consequences
I have a
of
smiley
that,
face on the hood of my car.
there you go. Those consequences are much less life-altering than when we get into our freshman year of college, and now we're suddenly potentially, as a young woman or a young man, faced with a potential addiction to alcohol.
Right.
I mean, those consequences are, so the more we can front end load that, the lower those consequences go.
So, and I want to be real careful the way I word this, because I certainly don't want it to come across the wrong way. So I'm going to be careful. So I'm going to jump down just a little bit. We've got a scripture that we're going to use for just a moment. It comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33. And it says, for kind of the tail end of the scripture says, for bad company corrupts good character. So, Mason, I'm going to let you kind of take this one for a second.
Okay.
For bad company corrupts good character. Based on our conversation over the course of the last 25 or so minutes, however long it's been, I would say that it's fair, and I think anybody watching or anyone listening would agree that you guys come from a good home. You've been raised to follow Jesus. You've been raised, you've been disciplined. You've been, you've been instilled with a lot of good, solid biblical values. Would you agree with that? Would you guys agree with that?
would, yeah,
Okay.
wholeheartedly.
Totally, 100%.
So- Good character. I think we could make the argument that you've been instilled as a family to have good character. And yet, according to Paul in his first letter to the church of Corinth, even those of us with good character, bad company can still corrupt it. So, you see what I'm trying to get at? How even,
Yeah.
and I hate to use the term good people, because I think that's a real loose term.
It is.
Yeah.
I hate to
Nobody's
use it.
good.
Nobody, well,
right.
none of us are good, but even people that in our, we would think, oh, they're a good person. Even good people, quote unquote, bad company is going to corrupt them. Kind of talk about that, if you can. I know that's kind of
Well,
throwing you.
So I think it has to do, like, if you have someone that's like a good person and then a bad person, like real black and white. And then the corruption can overcome both of them. I think it has to do with, if you're a good person, you see that corruption and you take that corruption and you, turn it over. I think it has to do with being good or bad. It's how you accept the corruption and how you deal with it. So, like, if you've got good morals, you come from a good background, you're going to know how to face that problem, and at least you may not come out over top, but you're going to come out stronger than you were before.
Stronger.
And so
Yeah.
that's how that's
Yeah.
my very minuscule minded how I portray that.
Down to 1 minute. I want to say something that Greg said before we actually started, and that is, I'm going to paraphrase it. This goes both ways. Sometimes God places us in a specific setting because He's looking for us to love people and to help escort them toward Jesus. And not that we have arrived. We have arrived at Jesus, but we have not arrived as I'm
What's
not a
your
good
Christian?
person. But sometimes God puts us in that position. Jesus spent His time with
Right.
you know, the people who are struggling. So
Right.
we're
Well,
down to about 15 seconds.
Even those with good character have small cracks in their character,
Yeah.
and those cracks, when they find a home with the wrong crowd,
Yeah.
it can become addictions, habits, and hang-ups. And at
Yeah.
the end of the day, choosing to follow Jesus, it's a lifelong pursuit of chasing after Him. And nothing on that journey can be, more harmful or more helpful than the crowd that we choose to pursue
Yes.
alongside. So,
Well, I think we have definitely got us a start on this conversation, and we hope y'all will continue this at home with your family and friends. And,
thank you, Crawfords.
Yeah.
And
Thanks for
Thank
having
y'all.
us.
we will see you guys later.
See you guys later. Bye-bye.